There are three officials, Hugh Evans, Lee Jones, and Mike Smith. We're underway. The Bullets, after winning 5 in a row, have lost their last 3 and come in at 12 and 13. The Warriors, a loser last night in Detroit by 10, are 10 and 16. Webber goes right at Joe Smith and puts in the first 2. Webber had that gleam in his eye as he was warming up pregame. He is very much thinking payback. Liddell Eccles has made the start at big guard, not Mitchell Butler, and he is guarding Sprewell quite well to open the game as he tips it off of Sprewell's foot.
He's going to be very aggressive, and he's going to bang Sprewell. He's going to put a body on him and try to disrupt Sprewell and not let him just run wherever he wants.
Liddell Eccles just playing himself back into shape. He signed December the 11th, was not playing at all this year. Juwan Howard, the turn over Kersey. That's his shot. They don't post him in the low blocks very often, and he'll take that quick spin as far as 18 feet away. 4-0 Bullets. Kersey over Juwan Howard answers. Kersey making his 5th straight start for the Warriors tonight. Ball tipped away. It was deflected out by a Warrior. The Bullets will keep it. Bullets are very rested. Their last game came on Saturday in Seattle.
They had won 5 in a row, lost their last 3 on that road trip.
Webber into Howard. The Bullets start rapidly, getting their 3 of their first 4, and the one shot that Webber missed, he put back in the bucket. 6-2 Washington.
There's no doubt that this team, the Washington Bullets, can score.
Well, Smith with the rainbow. Rebound. Iverson tipped away from Kersey. They're not a great rebounding team for a club with such imposing size. Here's a foul on Kersey, hand-checking Juwan Howard in the backcourt.
Now that's got to be very perplexing to head coach Jim Lynam. But it is a very young front court.
Now, be anxious to see how Howard rebounds tonight, Jim. Last game against the Warriors in 38 minutes, he pulled only 1 rebounder. Here's a foul. It's on Ronnie Cycling pushing Iverson from behind.
Well, it's really interesting because Juwan Howard, Chris Webber, and Joe Smith all played 38 minutes. And Joe Smith had 10 rebounds to a combined 7 between the 2 front court men for Washington.
Here goes Gitza. Put back in by Chris Webber. Webber has 2 offensive stickbacks and 4 points.
Well, he definitely wants to play tonight. A little redemption.
Sprewell tried to take Eccles. He got into traffic and he lost the ball for a second time. I gave you the good numbers on Sprewell last Friday, Jim, but he also turned the ball over 7 times in the win over the Bullets. And Sprewell can be very turnover prone. He's already given it 2. Iverson. Rebound to Sprewell. Warriors down 8-2. We played 2.5. Oh, good look by Sprewell, but Robert Pack got in there late to tip it away. Iverson on the block. Joe Smith back out to Kersey. Kersey wide open as Howard went over to guard Armstrong. Rebound, Robert Pack having a very good year as the Bullet point guard. Liddell Eccles, a quick one. Rebound to Webber. No look. And he's fouled. Nope, he's not fouled. They don't call a whistle. Just the eruption of the crowd. Not only are the young Bullets into this game, Jim, but the 18,000 plus are into it.
A lot of them here to see Webber and Howard, of course, but a great majority here to see the return of Joe Smith.
Cycling, tough shot over Iverson. Joe Smith showing no signs of any problem with the hip injury as he went up very springy to stick it back in the bucket. Here's the Webber pass a moment ago to Juwan Howard.
The Liddell Eccles miss. A long rebound just fell into the hands of Webber, but he's got a pair of great hands as he gets it into his former Michigan teammate. Watch Joe Smith. He jumps too soon on this one, and he just hangs. He tips it to keep it alive and then convert it. Missed the free throw.
Joe Smith missed the rebound. George Iverson dives on the floor to pick it up. Robert Pack. Liddell Eccles, the offensive rebound. Bullets beating up the offensive boards early. They've already pulled 4, 3 by Webber. Webber, a 3-point goal. He was shooting that shot repeatedly in pregame warm-ups, and he's doing it quite well during the regular season. 9 for 18.
The Warriors had 4 very productive quarters at home on Friday night, and now they're struggling just to put points on the board. Offensive rebounds have hurt the Warriors tonight, and Webber, the main cause.
Here's a foul on Chris Webber, his first. Bullets with a 13-4 lead. They have played 4 minutes. Sprewell, met by his friend Webber, induced into a traveling violation. His 3rd turnover of the game's first 4 minutes.
He simply changed pivot feet. Just a fundamental error. And it looks like the way the Bullets are scoring tonight, you can't make too many errors.
See the TBS Sports side. This game not only coming to you on the Warriors TV network, but a national cable cast, one of only 2 for the Warriors, and I don't think the Bullets don't know that. There's a foul on Kersey and a technical called by Mike Smith. Kersey picks up his 2nd foul, and he'll more than likely be leaving the game. Robert Pack will be shooting the technical free throw. Actually, before we head out to break, Pack will shoot it here. 13-4. The Bullets are up. He can make it 14-4. Robert Pack, 18 points a game. What a find he has been away from Denver. Makes the free throw. Timeout on the floor. 4:10 into it. The Bullets already have a quick 10-point lead. Here's Jerome Kersey picking up the foul on Robert Pack.
That's the 2nd foul he has picked up away from the basket earlier in the backcourt against Juwan Howard.
And then he picked up the technical. And now he's out of the game. Chris Mullen is in. Webber sticks the outside shot. The Bullets hit 7 of their first 12, and they've pulled 4 offensive rebounds on those 5 missed shots. Warriors just 2 for 6 to open, and the Bullets have grabbed the game by the throat right away with a 16-4 advantage. Robert Pack, very good defensive point guard. Juwan Howard guards Sprewell in a switch. Bill Smith with a jump hook over Webber. Bill Smith has 4 points.
He proved he could score against Webber last Friday night, but tonight he's got to make sure he blocks off Chris Webber from the boards. Webber is extremely focused tonight.
Webber's not been posting much. Here the spin on B.J. Armstrong. A foul on the floor called by Lee Jones on B.J. For Armstrong, his first foul.
The basket doesn't count, but how many big men can make that kind of move and finish with the finesse?
Well, when you think about it, Jim, look at this. Missed the dunk, depriving Webber the assist. Eccles bolting. Cycling may have gotten a piece of that. The point I was going to make, outside of Derek Coleman, how many power forwards in the NBA get triple doubles? I mean, there aren't very many. Malone's not that kind of passer. Webber and Derek Coleman are probably the only 2. Murison fouling Ronnie Cycling.
What a great move by Cycling. If you recall, just a few days ago, he was backing into Murison and playing to his strength. I mentioned at the time, you got to play Murison facing the basket. Now, he went left and then a crossover dribble, and Ronnie is very capable of making that kind of move, and he put Murison in jeopardy. Make a defender like that who is slow and big move his feet.
Murison's going to have to leave the game. That's his 2nd foul. Backup center, shot blocker Jim McIlvaine is in. McIlvaine and Murison are blocking a lot of shots this year. For McIlvaine, it's even more of a surprise because he only plays 14 minutes a night, and he gets a block and a half. The 13th best in the NBA, so when you rate him over 48 minutes, he is one of the more productive shot blockers in the league per minute.
He had a very big game against the Warriors here last year. He's a guy that just knows his strength, doesn't try to do too much, and knows that this guy right here is going to be the star.
Webber demands a double team, misses inside. Juwan Howard goes up with it. With Murison out of the game and McIlvaine the non-scorer in the game, they will post Webber more. Bullets up 18-8.
I thought Webber shuffled his feet on that play. Ball away with traveling.
Tipped away by Pack. Webber to Pack. Gives the Bullets a 12-point lead. Adelman was not happy with his team's energy last night in Detroit. And it's quite clear that the Bullets are the aggressive team tonight early. Into Cycling. Webber doubles.
What a great follow-up. And even the Bullets fans appreciate that one.
Well, a lot of them are Maryland Terrapins fans, and they just exploded. College Park, Maryland is only about 20 minutes away from US Air Arena. The Georgetown Hoyas play their home games here, but there are a few Terrapin fans here. Webber in a shot-happy mood tonight. He's 4 for 7. Sprewell right back with a big three-point goal. Warriors cut it down to 7 after being down 12 just a moment ago.
Sprewell going back on the boards. The Warriors aren't getting many fast break looks. That was an opportunity shot by Spree, giving a lot of room between Liddell Eccles and him.
Warriors double Juwan Howard immediately. Webber finds Eccles. He's a slashing type of scorer. Eccles' first hoop of the game. Liddell Eccles has lost a lot of weight. He used to be a much bigger player.
Well, he's going to probably get a new high in minutes this year. Most has played at 17.
Joe Smith does it again. And this time it could be worth 3 points.
He does not block off the boards. On this one, he went for a double team. No one picked up Joe Smith. And he followed up. This time he just loses Webber. A pump fake gets Webber in the air, and Joe Smith owns him on the way to the hoop.
This is the second time, Jim, that Joe Smith is playing at US Air Arena. His first ever game as a collegiate 2 years ago against the number 15 ranked at the time Georgetown Hoyas, and the Terrapins won it 84-83. And Joe was very good that day, and it was on national TV, like this game is on national cable. Illegal defense, a warning called on Ronnie Cycli and the Warriors. The Bullets are playing McIlvain up top, trying to pull Cycli away. Tim Hardaway has checked into the game for the first time as B.J. Armstrong has left, so Hardaway and Mullen are both in. Webber misses a dunk on a pass by Howard. They have each missed alley-oop dunks in the game's first 8 minutes. Hardaway all the way in, and he'll get himself on the free throw line.
Tim did an excellent job defending Robert Pack in Oakland on Friday night. Met the challenge. Let's see how he fares here in Pack's home yard. Good crossover. Gets it up in the air just a little long. Gets himself to the line.
Well, you mentioned at the top of the show, Jim, how much fun the game was Friday in Oakland, especially the first half. The first half was just dizzying. There were several great individual moments. And you look at these two rosters, I mean, there are some real stars on these two clubs that offensively can really light it up. And neither team plays much defense, to be frank about it.
No, they will allow points to be put up on the board. Just simply try to outscore one another. 132 to 117, and 132 was the high mark for the season. And remember, the Warriors got 44 points in the second quarter alone.
Warriors on a 10-2 run have trimmed a 12-point lead down to 4. Juwan Howard drives on the floor to pick up his bobble. And Bullets call a timeout. The Bullets have called a 20-second timeout. Juwan Howard reacting quickly and smartly. Avoided the turnover by going down to the floor. Now, this has now become a full Bullet timeout. We'll take one ourselves. 4 minutes to go in the quarter. The Bullets lead by 4.
And you know, Greg, you talked about their offensive prowess, but they kind of, to me, remind me of players of the 90s. Substance and style maybe don't go hand in hand. They love the highlight films, but in the final analysis, individual abilities have to blend in with team wins to be successful.
Robert Pack bobbles it away in the lane. Webber all the way to the bucket, scores. Webber has 11 points and 5 early assists in a very complete first 8.5 minutes. The Bullets are back up 6. Warriors have outscored the Bullets 14-8 since Mullen came into the game. Although Chris has not done a whole lot, he's not even shot the ball. Sprewell hits the shot at the baseline, his second bucket. He has 5 points. Warriors 7 of 12 to open the game. The Bullets 11 for 21. Now make it 22. Mullen the long rebound.
There's a lot more energy on the floor tonight for the Warriors than they had last night in Detroit.
Well, everybody said last night they were just kind of sleepwalking out there. Cycling bobbles it. Eccles, Robert Pack, a pull-up jumper. He felt confident shooting it because they had rebounders crashing the boards.
Tim still made the good defensive play. Coming at you like that, if you make him settle for an 18-footer, you've won the battle.
Warriors throw it away. Mullen, the pick and roll long to Joe Smith. The Warriors 7th turnover. Mack locks him up again, and he hits 2 in a row. Well, they're going to have a pleasant problem here in a couple of weeks. Mark Price is going to start practicing early next week, and he is scheduled to return January the 10th. He's a 4-time All-Star, and he's going to be their backup point guard behind Robert Pack. Hardaway, 3-time All-Star, the Warriors backup point guard. Shaquille, just that extra moment, and he was able to lose McIlvaine and then stuff it.
He wants to have a big game tonight. His father is here, his uncle is here, other family members over from Lebanon for the holidays.
And that's not Pennsylvania. We're talking Beirut.
We're talking Beirut.
Foul on Hardaway here. Tim Legler, the Warrior of a year ago. Kind of an NBA, CBA vagabond, now settling in here. Here's their #1 draft pick, Rasheed Wallace, the 4th pick out of North Carolina, who has since playing time slipped. Did not perform real well on their recent road trip. Here's the guy. You talk about Weber and Howard and Murasad, but most observers feel the reason the Bullets have been flirting with 500 all year is Robert Pack.
Well, he's 6th in the league in assists, 6th in steals, and averaging 18 points a game. Really complements this club. Out of control once in a while, a little wild, but why not? He plays with some wild guys.
Interesting thing is both Robert Pack and Mark Price will be free agents this summer. Price has packed the steal from behind and then the dunk up the floor.
Well, Pack is having a big first period.
Bullets go back up by 10. Warriors were down 10 after 1 quarter last night in Detroit and just never got back into the game, never threw. This time Mullen executes the pick and roll perfectly with Shaquille.
Finally gets a bounce pass to get to the hands of Shaquille that gets to the basket.
Foul down low, Mullen bumping with Juwan Howard. Here's the last play by Robert Pack, the tip, and then the later dunk.
No mystery there. Easy steal by Pack, his 2nd dunk of the quarter.
Juwan Howard makes the free throw, and the Bullets stretch it out to a 9-point lead. The Minnesota Timberwolves will be in the Coliseum a week from this Friday. Get your tickets via Bass and all their Ticketmaster centers, including the Warehouse and Tower Records, or by calling Bass at 762-BASS. 11 of the Warriors' next 13 opponents will be against teams with losing records. These Bullets are 1 game under 500. Here goes Sprewell. Cuts the lead down to 8 again. Sprewell getting inside. That's going to be a tough matchup for Tim Legler.
Very tough, and that's why I think Sprewell could explode if he has a mindset. But how about the passing by Mullen?
Juwan Howard misses. Tempted Shaquille, just threw it out there. Sprewell grabs it. Chris Mullen, the quick pop. Rebound, Juwan Howard, much more aggressive on the boards tonight. His 3rd rebound. Each glove has pulled 10 in the game's first 11 minutes. Less than a minute of play in what has been a very entertaining first quarter. Robert Pack barely hit the rims. Mullen, no look drop pass. He should have looked. Warriors turn it over again. Another sloppy quarter for the Warriors. They've committed 9 turnovers.
He simply led Hardaway a little too much, and the ball didn't so much as bounce up, but it bounced away from Tim.
Well, that's a stat that'll really sting you. 9 turnovers for the Warriors, just 1 for the Washington Bullets. The Bullets are 2nd in the league in forcing turnovers. Robert Pack with the reversal, just missed it. Sprewell bolts around Legler. Sprewell feels confident against his teammate Legler of last year. McIlvaine, the block. Juwan Howard, the Bullets have a 10-point lead again. Juwan Howard, Chris Webber, and Robert Pack have scored 34 of the Bullets' 36 first quarter points. Here's your last play of the game's first 12 minutes. Hardaway over McIlvaine. Bullets half time. Robert Pack from midcourt. Bullets 14 points off turnovers in that first quarter. The Warriors had none. A very sloppy show of it. 12 minutes through for the Warriors. They are down 8 in Maryland.
It's been a game for the forwards, and the front court of the Bullets have been dominant between Webber and Howard combining for 23 points. But the story are the 9 turnovers. And how about this? This is a nice look to get Gatling back. They need him tonight.
Gatling has not played since last Wednesday, a week ago tonight in Denver, when he elbowed Don McLean in the front tooth, and actually he got the worst of it. Also, John Barry is in, and Clifford Rozier is in. Only Hardaway and Mullen stay out there among the group that closed the first quarter. So it's a Hardaway-Barry backcourt up front. Mullen, Gatling, and Rozier. Now Brent Price is in for the Bullets, Mark's younger brother, who torched the Warriors last Friday in Oakland for 18 points. Iverson's also back in. Price, nice save to Big George.
Yeah, Brent Price had a tremendous game at the Coliseum.
Scored those 18 points in just 16 minutes. Here's a foul, and it's on the Warriors. A hold down low called on Chris Gatling. We did not know that Gatling was going to play right up until game time. In fact, the word about 2 hours before game time was that Chris was not going to play.
Still has that wound on the left wrist and the left hand area from Don McLean's tooth. And it is still open, so it will drain and not become effective.
Wallace with a bad miss. Warriors are down 8 points early in the second quarter. Mullen over to Juwan Howard for 3. Talk about the Bullet size advantage, but Juwan Howard's going to have to come out on the floor and guard the very active Mullen.
Mullen did a nice job on Howard in Oakland. And Chris is here, he's doing the same thing. Did that go off Juwan Howard? Yes. See, Mullen plays defense before Howard gets the ball.
And Howard is not a real post guy. He will do a lot of that facing up. Tim Hardaway knocked down a 3-point goal on the far right wing, and the Warriors have cut it down to 2 points. The Warriors were down 12 in that first quarter.
Greg, you got a team that's focused. The turnovers more than has hurt.
Here's a pushing foul on Clifford Rozier, trying to match up with Iverson. You think it does any good to push him at all?
Iverson?
Yeah.
Before he catches the ball, because once he gets down into the painted area, forget it. And he can face up and shoot it. He's got a very soft pair of hands.
He pretty much gets wherever he likes to get with that body. He is just massive. Rasheed Wallace with quickness up over Gatling. People were perplexed why the Bullets even chose Wallace. A power forward, they're obviously strong there with both Howard and Webber, but Wallace is not an ordinary power forward. He is tremendously skilled. Rozier. Warriors have numbers here. Mullen, oh, what a great catch. Barry to Howard, beautifully done.
John Barry only 1 for 5 last night. Perhaps his poorest outing in maybe a month.
He said it's really only his second bad game of the year, along with the game he had in Toronto. How about that catch by Chris Mullen? What, Wallace airballs one. They're on Rasheed Wallace here.
Well, Rasheed, his focus is on scoring too much. Now, Gatling makes a very poor play. He tries to steal the ball, but Rozier bails him out on a tremendous timing play and a good block. Another look at it, and watch the hands of Mullen, like you're talking about. One hand just stops it with the right hand, and then the pass back. Barry drops it back to Tim.
How many guys in the league can make that play? Can catch it like he did? Mullen knocks down the jumper.
How many guys can shoot like Chris Mullen?
Warriors are playing much better. They have tied the game as they have outscored the Bullets 10-2 to open the second quarter. But Webber is now back in. Price to Tim Legler. And he's fouled. John Barry got Legler from behind.
Just couldn't avoid contact. Tried to get thin. I think everyone's surprised why they didn't go back to Webber with Chris Mullen defending. John tries to get thin and go by. Legler just created a little contact. He's number 1 in the NBA in three-point field goal percentage, and number 2 is on the opposition tonight. He just hit a jumper, Chris Mullen.
And it's good to see Tim Legler getting, there you look at the shooting for the game. Warriors really playing well offensively. When you take away the turnovers, though, but they've turned the ball over too many times. Ball a little strong with that three. Gatling puts it back in.
He needs to start playing with consistency. Chris Gatling has had a lot of nagging injuries this year.
Mullen hassling Legler. Legler lost the ball. The Warriors can take the lead here. Well, they're not going to get it right here. Brent Price steals it. But what is Weber going to do here?
Remember, it still only counts for 2 points. You don't get style points.
Weber has 6 buckets, 13 points, 5 assists. Gatling able to get it in over Murison. 43-42 after the emotion of the early game. We have settled in now, and it appears as though we're going to have a good show for you tonight. Here goes Weber. Walked around Gatling. Gatling got cooked.
And it didn't take much effort because it was not a big first step.
Mullen behind his back, lost it. Weber wants to jam it. See, that's where Weber gets himself into trouble. Before he picked the ball up, he was trying to make the dunk. Instead of making the solid play and just getting the ball first, Jim, he's thinking touchdown.
That's one of the problems with young players. All the immense popularity of this game. And that's why this young team, the starters at about 23.5 years of age, they know the future is ahead of them.
Offensive foul on the Warriors. They call it on Chris Gatling. Ball goes back over to the Washington Bullets. They do have the youngest starting 5 in the NBA, just slightly over 23.5 years of age. They have the youngest roster overall in the league, also just slightly over 25. They're optimistic about this team.
Remember what Doug Collins said last night, though? You really got to have a short leash on younger players and teach them the proper way. Do not let them go out on their own because you never get them back. That's the one thing that I would guard against with the Washington Bullets here, and particularly having their leader, Chris Webber.
Hardaway overshoots the rim, hits the long side of the backboard. Gatling. Hardaway is fouled on the floor, a hold. It's on Brent Price. His older brother Mark could really be a settling influence on this team. The 4-time All-Star will turn 32 next month when he comes back. Timeout. Bullets are up 3. He's building a house in Atlanta. Of course, he played collegiately at Georgia Tech. And as a free agent, the thought is that he will sign with the Hawks over the offseason and rejoin his longtime coach in Cleveland, Lenny Wilkins. So what happens to Mookie Blaylock then? A lot of rumors involving Blaylock being dealt.
You've got a great defender in Mookie Blaylock who can still score, and Mark Price, a designated shooter. And even though Mark Price is toward the end of his career, he's got a couple of good years left because he's such a smart basketball player. You know, it's evident in the early going, Greg, that the Warriors can give up a lot of points, make a lot of mistakes, and still get themselves back in the game because they can score. This team is not a good defensive team, the Washington Bullets.
It's almost like playing the Phoenix Suns. You know you can score. The question is, can you score enough to keep up with them?
That's a good analogy.
Rozier will be on the line. Number 3 called on Murison. That's going to help the Warriors' cause tonight. As George, the big man's been in big foul trouble. He's going to have to leave again. Jim McIlvaine comes back in.
Well, with Murison leaving, I don't know whether that hurts Clifford Rozier or helps him, because I thought Rozier against Murison the other night at home had his best game of the season. 14 points on 5 for 5 shooting.
Loose ball foul has been called on the Bullets, Mitchell Butler. And the ball will stay in the custody of the Warriors. Bullets are playing Brent Price, Tim Legler in the backcourt. Butler now in, a good defender watching Mullen. And here goes Mullen on. Butler will switch out. Weber guards Mullen. Very Rozier. The Warriors traveling away again. The Warriors' 13th turnover of the game.
When you've got John Barry and Chris Mullen in the game together, and you're playing alongside them, you've got to have your hands up and ready to catch the ball. They will disperse of it quickly.
McIlvaine, jump hook. Tipped in by Mitchell Butler. Butler out of UCLA, never drafted in the NBA, but now in his 3rd year with the Bullets.
He just turned and went down.
We have a stoppage of play here as Tommy Abner, the Warrior trainer, runs out to attend to Chris Mullen. We have a timeout called, I believe, by the Warriors as something is wrong with Mo. He's bleeding. Mullen got poked just below the eye.
He's got a cut below his left eye. He's got a gash.
That's why Mullen was squawking with the referees, obviously.
He's just going to head right to the locker room and get it stitched up. And he was concerned. He's not concerned about the cut, but a foul. Let's watch McIlvaine, number 22. Watch the elbow, the right elbow. Ooh. There it is.
Came down a little awkward. That was Mutombo-ish. And Mullen still giving it to the referee, Hugh Evans, before he heads in. And now he's got a little parting thought for McIlvaine. That may spice up things. Actually, McIlvaine's on the floor. He just sets up into the Bullet bench. And Mullen normally does not talk to the opponents at all.
Well, he'll be back. But you hate to get hit like that. Come out of this league like a hockey player.
Joe Smith is in. Webber steals it from his buddy Sprewell. Look at Webber deal. A little drop to Howard. Into Brent Price. They got to back out of the lane now, or a 3-second call will be laid on them. Well, that's where you get the big guy running the break for Jim Lynam. Having Webber do those fancy things just gets his club into trouble.
He did make the right play by dropping it off. Sprewell, his 4th turnover of the game. The thing about this is I thought the Bullets got out of the lane quickly enough. Play was already over, and Brent Price took it out of the lane. Everybody was out.
Rozier, quick rebound, foul. Oh, it's on Rozier, and he bobbled out of bounds. And now he squawks quickly.
See that? If you don't call a foul, you should get possession. Lee Jones may correct himself here.
And it's going to be Bullet ball. They allow Legler to re-enter, and McIlvaine's going to leave as Jim Lynam is going to go small.
And Lee Jones missed that when Rick Adelman knows it.
2.5 minutes have gone by, and the Warriors have not scored a single point in that time, as they're down 47-42. Hardaway guarding Brent Price. Webber comes way out to get it against Rozier. Rozier's played Webber well in their previous matchups.
He stays down on the floor, see? Doesn't go for the fakes.
Getting inside is Brent Price to pull the offensive rebound. Right back up.
Sprewell doing a good job on the defensive boards tonight.
5 minutes to go in the half. Warriors are down 5. Here's a foul called by Hugh Evans. Illegal defense is actually the violation on the Bullets, their first violation. Jim Lynam, his 2nd year coaching the Bullets. Very upbeat guy, an enthusiastic motivator, much like the mold of a coach you would like to have with this young Bullet team. Even last year when they struggled through a 61-loss year, Lynam was able to stay upbeat. Barry into Rozier. Nicely done by Clifford, getting much more clever around the basket.
Because he's getting more aware of when to take that step to the basket to meet the pass. That's a big reason for him.
That breaks the Warriors about a 3-minute drought with no points. There they're down 3 here.
Didn't really hurt him. The drought did not hurt him.
That'll hurt him. He could shoot. He could shoot when he was a collegiate at LaSalle. Had to work on his perimeter defense a bit, and he was able to develop that skill, or at least to help it a bit in the CBA. John Barry to Hardaway. Hardaway against Chris Webber. All the way to the bucket. Rebound tipped in by Rozier.
He is very active.
Webber throws it away. John Barry on the steal. Barry goes flying up the floor. He got picked by Mitchell Butler. He almost stepped through with 3 bullets. Webber, little jump hook.
Tough break. The Bullets hustled back and made the play happen against John.
Chris Webber, a 17-point first half. Bullets up 52-46. 3.5 minutes to go. Webber to Legler. Howard by himself. Again, that's where the Bullets get out of control. Any team in the league, I can't think of one that allows their power forwards to lead the fast break more than this team.
Yeah, they're just not fundamentally sound.
Here they go again.
It's a real rat race right now.
And Webber and Howard are like playing 2-on-2. Butler gets fouled. They really do need Mark Price on this team, don't they? I mean, maybe he could change the way they play.
They need some leadership. They need some discipline.
Adelman's going to call a timeout. I know what you're saying, you know. Hey, guys, the Bullets are playing well and they're winning, but that's going to get him into a lot of trouble later. 3 minutes to go in the first half. The Bullets lead the Warriors by 6.
How many fast break opportunities have the Bullets squandered tonight because of that?
I can think of 4 or 5 easily. They have outscored the Warriors in points off turnovers 20-3.
Well, they've got a lot of turnovers to work with, but you know, to me, success isn't measured where you are. It's measured where you are compared to where you could be. And that's why I really like Doug Collins' philosophy on younger players. Get them to learn to play the right way initially.
Mitchell Butler got one, missed one. Rebound onto Robert Pack back into the game. Last 3 minutes now of the first half. The Bullets lead the Warriors 53-46. Juwan Howard wants to post up against Joe Smith. Ronnie Cycling back in the game for the Warriors. They double on Howard. He resets. He has to hurry. Shot clock down. He has a lot of maturity to his game. And he can make that shot all night long.
He loves to turn right shoulder. And I don't know how you stop him when he fades away like that. He doesn't even appear to be bothered by a defender.
Robert Pack beating up Tim Hardaway the whole way. Picks up the foul. His second of the game.
Tim takes a little extra, turns it up a little notch for Robert Pack. He has to. Both guys are very strong, and Robert Pack's a good defender.
Bullets got Robert Pack just before the year began in the trade from Denver, giving up Don McClain and Doug Overton right around the time that they knew that Mark Price would not be healthy for the year. Mark had left foot surgery just after he was acquired.
Plantar fascia tissue. Tim Legler, by the way, has been bothered by that. BJ backdoor, reverse layup.
Nice pass by Tim Hardaway. For B.J. Armstrong, his first 2 points of the game. And for Tim Hardaway, his very first assist of the game.
That play was set up by the previous play when Legler disrupted on the pass to the perimeter.
Juwan Howard can do that all night long. Howard has 16 points. Weber has 17. Robert Pack 11. The Bullets shooting 51%. Lead by 9. The Bullets are the only team in the NBA shooting better than 50% from the floor. Joe Smith took it away from Weber.
And he knew what to do with it.
Good showdown between Weber and Smith there. That battle for the rebound. Weber wants the ball now. Pick, set, back. Out of your point, avoided. Referee way up top. Julie Jones calls the traveling violation. Here's the rebound battle a moment ago, Jim.
See, Weber really doesn't make too much of an attempt to block off the boards. He tried to get that rebound and run. And there were several plays like that last Friday night. You know, I'm going to say it quickly, Greg. In the long run, 4 years from now, Warrior fans will be glad that they have Joe Smith and not Chris Webber, if there were a choice. In the long run, Joe Smith is going to be the consistent player that can take you to another level. Although Webber's got a lot of talent, and if he matures, he can make a liar out of it.
Fouls on B.J. Armstrong. Less than a minute to go. Rick Adelman. It's not hard to pick up his emotions as he drops his head here. Not happy with the last sequence, putting Legler on the line. Warriors are scoring well tonight. They've been a bit sloppy with 16. A bit sloppy. They have 16 turnovers. They've been very sloppy. Now, this figures to be a shootout tonight.
But yeah, that's the good news and bad news of it. You hate to see a team have 16 turnovers, and yet you're looking right now at a 6-point deficit. And now it's a 7-point deficit. The Warriors, though, with the time on their hands, 50 seconds to go, can trade 2 for 1 to finish the half if they play it properly.
Armstrong doubled, threw it off of Howard's knee. The Warriors keep it, shot clock down to 11. Juwan Howard will be a free agent this summer. He signed a 2-year deal with an out clause, which will exercise this summer. He wants Chris Webber money.
Yeah, I'm glad they got rid of those kinds of contracts. You know, again, success is measured at team success.
Tim Hardaway knocks down a 3-point goal. 4-point game.
If they defend here and then score to go into the locker room, they're in great shape.
Webber going to face up over Joe Smith. Chris Webber, a 19-point first half. His career high, 37. He got in a win here a couple of weeks ago against the Lakers. Shot clock is turned off. Hardaway against Robert Pack. Likely Armstrong left. Smith going to set a pick right towards Sprewell. Hardaway will scoop it up. Shaquille and Smith can't take it. Webber does. Bullets have got to hurry. Will shoot that too late. As once again having Webber run the break. There's Gary Williams, the head coach of the Maryland Terrapins. Got a good seat to watch one of his finest, Joe Smith. When Joe went to College Park, Maryland, he was not considered much of a prospect. He was not a real dominant high school player in Norfolk, Virginia, but he quickly grew in his years at College Park and wound up, after only 2 seasons there, becoming the #1 pick in the NBA draft.
Well, he was recruited very early on to the University of Maryland. Now tonight, he had 9 points in the first quarter alone. He played 6 minutes of the second quarter. He only took 1 shot and had 1 rebound in the last 16.5 minutes of that half. He just has to get more chances and more touches with the basketball. 5 for 6 and 6 rebounds. And Greg, no surprise, playing against Chris Webber, he had 4 offensive rebounds of his 6 total in the first half.
And Robin Vickers grabbed his megaphone. He said to go. He wears the entire catching gear. He wears a chest protector and the knee pads. I wonder if Pat Gillick of the Orioles going to sign him. He's signing everybody else around baseball. Joe Smith going to work on Juwan Howard to open the third quarter. Shot clock down to 5. The Warriors, I don't know if that's a turnover or a block shot. In any event, the Bullets take it away, and they know what to do with it. Right inside to Howard. And the Bullets go up by 8, 63-55.
B.J. Armstrong only played 10 minutes in the first half. Hardaway logging most of the point guard minutes. Let's see if the Warriors can come out and execute a little bit and take care of the ball.
Well, that's a low percentage shot, you would think, but Jerome Kersey able to give Juwan Howard a little of his own repertoire. That's a Juwan Howard type shot.
Watch when Kersey's on Howard. He won't be able to catch the ball as low as he normally likes. This is good defense by Joe Smith initially.
Way out to get Webber. One-on-one, the matchup we've been anticipating. Webber, a great passer out of the double team to Eccles into Murison. I don't know how he got it over the backboard and even came close to making that. That angle was almost impossible. But the big man has a soft touch. He almost got that in. Cycling right up over Murison. Rattles out. Cycling told me before the game that historically he's had success against Murison, but not so far tonight. Did not play well Friday. Sprewell misses. Joe Smith. It's Murison. He throws it wisely back out. Armstrong. Warriors a bit scattered offensively to open this third quarter. Rebound raced down by Liddell Eccles, starting for the injured Cheney. And he'll give us a little of the Michigan mug as he goes back defensively. Webber has a game high 21. Bullets up 65-57. 2 minutes into the third quarter. Bullets like to switch. Howard now guards Armstrong. Eccles reaches and fouls.
We know Webber likes to leak out early. Jerome Kersey just could not get there in time to take either a charge or get in front of Webber. I don't think he had any chance right now in his 11th season to get to the top and try to block.
Well, we've been pointing out how Webber's not fundamentally sound. But is there a better finisher in the NBA when he's swooping in? You know one thing, the ball is going in the basket.
Well, they say it's entertainment, and he certainly is an entertainer. What a tough shot by Joe Smith. He is very fluid tonight.
Jerome Kersey and Joe Smith doing the Juwan Howard imitations as they get back-to-back long hoops. Warriors back within a half dozen.
Well, Smith doesn't do it in spectacular fashion, but again, he's so fundamental with it.
Iverson was not ready. Eccles hit him in the back of the head. Here's that last bucket by Joe spinning on Chris Webber.
He really understands where Webber is. And as soon as Webber starts to peer out, he can easily spin inside, which he's done before.
And you can see him lean into Webber, feel his body, and then fade away to the open area. Joe is 6 of 8 from the floor tonight. B.J. Armstrong with the bank.
Pretty.
B.J. had a big offensive game last night, at least early on, had 9 of his 13 in the first quarter, returning to his hometown of Detroit. He only has 4 points so far tonight, though. There goes Webber against Joe Smith. He's fouled, and Chris will shoot 2 free throws.
One thing I will give Chris Webber credit for, he has obviously worked on his moves while he's facing the basket. We talked about that last week at home, Greg. He had no offensive moves when he first came to the Warriors 2 years ago.
Webber averaging 22.5 points a game. And tonight, he has the 22 points along with 5 assists. He is their franchise, undeniably. Got a 6-year, $59 million contract. He'll make $6.4 million this year, the 6th highest paid player in the NBA. And the last year of the contract, he will make better than $16 million.
Ooh, I did not know that. It's staggering.
A.J. Armstrong slips. A foul on Robert Pack for kneeing him. That's number 3 on Robert Pack. Robert Pack with 3:40 gone in the quarter will not be pulled. Lyman will lead him out there. We'll see if the Warriors look to get him into deeper foul trouble. Pretty well to Joe Smith. Spins on Iverson, throws it out. Likely wants it. Jerome Kersey. Another jump shot for Jerome. He's made 2 in this quarter. He is 3 of 4 shooting tonight for 6 points. Warriors have trimmed the lead down to 3.
They just keep hanging in there.
Much like last night in Detroit, they fell behind quickly and were down just about 10 the whole night.
Well, they're playing better defense in this quarter.
The point is they are playing much better tonight, the Warriors, and you see the possibility of them coming back to actually win the game against Jim Lynam's young team, who has built up an early pattern in the Webber era for losing close games. They are 12 and 13 this year. The Bullets, 7 of their losses have been by 6 points or less. And last year, they lost a lot of late close games. Sprewell trying to tie it, barely hit the rim. Rebound of the Bullets, out of bounds. Chris Mullin has returned to the Warrior bench, got 4 stitches under his left eye in the locker room, and he, of course, is eligible to return. He was elbowed in that first half by backup center Jim McElvain. Juwan Howard just hustling up on Jerome Kersey. He has the complete game, Jim. He can score outside, he can beat you inside.
He's actually tougher than Webber. He enjoys contact much more than Chris does.
Sprewell, I thought he was going to reverse that to get away from Iverson. Blocked it. It goes out of bounds. A foul is called on Liddell Eccles. A hold. Iverson's become a much better shot blocker this year.
I'm not sure George got a piece of this with Sprewell. Sprewell out quick and little pump fake. Went to the left hand. He certainly made him change his shot. Then Liddell Eccles reaches in, puts Ronnie on the line.
He may not get a block, but he certainly was the reason that Sprewell let it roll off his wrist. Ronnie cycling with his dad here. Missing the free throw wide right. Ronnie was born in Beirut, Lebanon, and then moved for high school to Athens, Greece. Speaks 4 different languages. International showdown here. Ronnie Cycling against George Iverson, 2 guys that grew up in drastically different environments. Ronnie in a very affluent area of Athens, Greece, and Iverson from is a refugee from the communist days of Romania. Chris Webber knocks down a three. The capitalist, 71-64 Bullets, and Webber is capitalizing the night. He has 25 points, 12 away from his career high.
Best I've seen him shoot from the outside.
Armstrong. Again affecting the shot, but a foul is called.
So Webber has 2 3-pointers tonight, only had 8 coming in.
Timeout called by Jim Lineup. Bullets are up 7 with 6.5 to play, third quarter. Latrell Sprewell, 3 of 11 shooting tonight, just 7 points. He was shooting the ball quite well over a 5-game period, about 50%, but last night he had a poor shooting game in Detroit. Just 2 for 11. He's followed it up tonight. Cycling shooting after being fouled by Murison. Murison's 4th foul of the game. But once again, he is out. He's not going to be much of a factor until late, if at all, tonight because of foul trouble. So Jim McElvain, their backup center, has returned to defend Cycling. Warriors are down at 6, and Cycling now makes it a 71-66 game. Midway through this third quarter in Landover, Maryland. Among the Bullets, the Capitals, and also the Warthogs. Indoor soccer team.
Aggressive defense.
Joe Smith went down and he got his ankle rolled over. I think he's all right though. Quick shot missed. Joe is back defensively, never left the lane. Traveling violation by Juwan Howard. Once again, their forwards playing like guards, and they give it back.
He doesn't like the call, but it's clearly the proper call by Lee Jones. And again, see, those are the little mistakes that add up over the stretch of a ball game, Greg.
Bullets have 11 turnovers, Jim. Warriors 16. Sprewell gets himself into trouble. He somehow gets out of that. The ball went off his chest. They say no travel. Sprewell shot clock down. He's got his night shooting. Rebound to Howard. Good play by Joe Smith to strip him from behind and finds Sprewell. Blocks it. Cycling is on the line. What a good sequence there.
McElvain's second block of the night. Remember, he led the nation in block shots over 4 a game at Marquette 2 years ago. I thought it took Sprewell a long time to get it back up to the basket. A beautiful play by Joe Smith, though, to retrieve the rebound and find Sprewell underneath.
Cycling getting on the line a little more here in the second half. Joe Smith, after falling in the lane, having his ankle rolled on by one of the Bullets, made a very strong, springy recovery. Joe is obviously into this game tonight. 3 busloads are here. 2.5-hour drive from his hometown of Norfolk, Virginia. A lot of his Maryland buddies are here, including his head coach, former head coach Gary Williams. And he is responding with a very good game. Webber against Joe. 1-on-1. Sprewell to double. It won't stop Webber, though. Webber has 27 points. And he has been consistent the whole night. 11 in the first quarter, 8 second quarter. And he has 8 more here in the third.
Seems like he scores almost every time he touches the ball when he puts his mind to it. They come very easily to him tonight.
Here's a switch. Armstrong against Webber. Armstrong does not take him. Instead, dumps it into Smith against Robert Pack. Out to Kersey. Pack the rebound. Robert Pack pulls up. He likes that play. Cycling and Smith are fighting for the rebound. Kersey had his contact knocked out, I believe, or something, as he has stopped playing. Kersey grabs a towel. He may be bleeding out of the nose or something, as he was dazed as he was trying to defend inside. Mullen going to come back in. Mullen was nicked up in the first half and got 4 stitches under his left eye. So I think Kersey got it on top of the head.
You always like aggressive play. Long shot by Robert Pack. Unfortunately, Ronnie Cycling and Joe Smith were battling for the rebound, and yes, Jerome Kersey got it just on the forehead.
It was friendly fire, too. It was Ronnie Cycles. Liddell trying to do a chin-up on the rim, blows the dunk. And the Warriors take it right back. Jerome Kersey has left the game. Ronnie Cycles beginning to be a go-to guy here with Mirasan out of the game. He has scored 6 of his 14 in this third quarter. Timeout Bullets. 4:22 to go. Warriors have trimmed it down to 4. Like Mullen, he has to go into the locker room for some stitches. Warriors down 4 here. Here's a 3 by Weber. That's his third 3 of the game.
I mentioned that earlier. He only had 8 coming in, although he has been very judicious in his shot selection. 8 for 17 coming in tonight. And now he's knocked down 3 in one game.
I just had a feeling he would try to get his career high tonight. He already has 30. He's 7 away. And we still have 16 minutes yet to play. What a shooting show by Weber. He's at 13 of 18 floor. Cycling shot clock down to 4. Makes it over McElvain.
He's having a big quarter, Ronnie Cycling.
He scored half of his 16 points in this quarter. And mostly the last couple of minutes for Ronnie. Here goes Weber, one-on-one with Joe Smith. Warriors have not been doubling him until he gets into a threat position deeper to the bucket. Behind the back to Howard. Up over Mullen. Cycling lost the rebound, but still takes it.
Howard's not nearly as effective when he turns left shoulder as he is when he turns right shoulder.
Cycling has scored the last 8 Warrior points. Here's a foul. Robert Pack will pick it up, I believe, and that's his 4th foul of the game. So he and Mirasan are in foul trouble. He will have to leave. Jim Lynam will bring in Brent Price.
Do you think that Brent Price commands the respect of the rest of the players? When I'm thinking about getting an outlet pass, we know that Howard likes to control the ball. Weber really likes to dominate with the ball. But they do throw it to Robert Pack once in a while. But I've noticed with Brent Price, he doesn't handle it nearly as much.
It's almost like he plays 2 guard. Tim Legler is also going to come in with Price, so they change up their backcourt. Pack and Liddell Eccles leave.
Let's watch how their fast breaks materialize now.
Warriors just not picking up very many assists tonight. BJ only has 1, Sprewell just 2, Mullen Hardaway 2 apiece. The Warriors have 29 baskets, only 8 assists. And there's been some games where they've had 34 assists on 36 baskets.
Coming in last night over the past 6 games, they were averaging over 28. That's a muscle move. And a follow-up by Weber.
Joe Smith blocked the first one, but Cycling did not get number 2. Weber is in 14 of 20 from the floor to score 32 points. Bullets are up 6.
Still a fun game.
And we have the best fun here. The 4th quarter is going to be interesting. Cycling inside, going up, gets fouled again. Boy, without Mirasan in the game, the Warriors really have been scoring easily on the Bullets.
A great defensive play by Joe Smith, but give Weber credit, he stayed with it. He does have some physical tools to work with.
Gatling comes in. Joe Smith will take a rest here. Tim Hardaway is also back in. Here near Capitol Hill, he already starts lobbying with Lee Jones. In Landover, Maryland, we are a bit closer to Washington, D.C. than we are to Baltimore. Baltimore's about an hour away, and Washington about a half an hour. The Bullets are going to play 1 more full year here in this building this year and all of next year. Then they're going to move into a new downtown building in Washington, D.C. in the Chinatown section. Howard doubled out to Weber. Back into Juwan. Howard up over Chris Mullen. Good defense by Mullen and Cycling. The Warriors take it away. Free ball. Hardaway picks it up. Mullen over McElvain. Rebound to Brent Price. Less than 2 minutes to go, third quarter. Legler got it somehow, and once he gets it, he's dangerous, but he missed. Weber, alert rebound pass. Weber again, a rebound pass. Finds Howard. Traveling by Nash.
2 great plays by Chris Weber, though. Very alert plays. And Ronnie Cycling lost vision of Juwan Howard. but he gets bailed out on the play because Howard shuffles his feet. That is a planned play by Webber. And again, a quick one to Legler.
You know, that's bird-like because he's pulling the rebound. He's already passing the ball. Webber on top of the 32 points, has 6 rebounds and 6 assists. Less than 90 seconds to go. Cycling right back. It goes. Warriors have been handling the ball much better this quarter after an atrocious 16 first-half turnovers. That is just their first turnover the entire third quarter. Howard, double, triple. And he goes up anyway, stubbornly. Charge on Mullen. Mullen in mock applause, getting on Lee Jones. Let's see.
Who gets it from down below? It's Mullen that strips the ball from Howard. I thought he might put on the brakes here. Instead, he tried to do a little crossover dribble and go around Brent Price, and Brent Price did have good position.
Mullen just never got into a flow tonight, at least not so far. Just 5 points.
And last night, Chris Mullen did not shoot the ball well at all.
Here's Bob McCann, a rugged front court player who will check in here late in the third quarter, replacing Chris Webber. Webber leaves with 32 points.
Mullen only 5 for 13 last night, but he had been blistering the Nets before that at 67% since he's come off the bench, and he could yet get in the flow.
And he's 2 for 6 tonight.
This guy can get in the flow.
Antling, awkward rebound, goes down. Juwan Howard goes up and in. Adelman's going to call a late third quarter timeout here. Delay of game warning on the Bullets first, and then Adelman wants to talk it over. And it will be a full Warrior timeout. Less than a minute to play third quarter. The Warriors are now down 7. Greg Papa, Jim Barnett back in Landover, Maryland, as the Warriors go through their strategy late third quarter. They have to listen to the rantings of the heckler, Robin Ficker. When Don Nelson was the coach of the Warriors, he used to pull the club right out to mid-court in the lane, middle of the floor, right in front of the Warrior bench, and he would put his chair out there to get away from Robin Ficker, but Rick Adelman does not appear to be too concerned.
I think Robin Ficker has mellowed, if that's possible. It's certainly possible through the years. He does not seem to be as vociferous tonight as I've seen him in the past. Maybe he's been working long hours. Or maybe it's the holiday season.
I think you're just he's mellowed a bit. The guy next to him doesn't think he's mellowed. Imagine having a seat right next to that guy. Ronnie Cycling gets the tip in.
Does not count. He was fouled on the play.
He was fouled. He will shoot 2 free throws, though.
Another little drop pass by Mullen.
Called by Bob McCann, who was briefly in a Warrior training camp a couple of years ago.
Mullen comes off the screen by Cycling, then just drops it down. Chris Mullen probably uses a bounce pass as effectively as anyone I know at the present time in the NBA. It is almost a lost art, and it's very difficult to do in traffic, and I don't think anyone does it better.
Ronnie Cycling at the line. 7 for 12, an active free throwing game. He now has a Warrior high 17 points with this big third quarter. He's got 9 in the quarter. Bullets running kind of a weave offense here. Shot clock down to 7. Brent Price takes Sprewell, and then he gets fouled. Price locked him up inside, and Sprewell dove on him.
Fortunately, the Warriors had a foul to give. It will be non-shooting. But Spree should recognize. See Gatling in the middle of your picture? Spree should see him out of the corner of his eye and know that he does not have to take the fake of Brent Price, that he's got protection at the basket.
Shot clock is on. And you can see the game clock there to the right of your screen. Shot clock at 12 now. About a second differential. Howard checks the clock. All the way to the bucket. Strong move. Mullen to Gatling.
Does he know how much time is left?
Got it to Howard. Warriors began the second half down 6. And now they will begin the fourth quarter down 9. Chris Webber and Juwan Howard each having huge games. Webber 32 and Howard 24. Grab a Budweiser with us while we peruse the game through 3 quarters. Warriors shot it well in the first half, not so well in the third quarter. Bullets have been pretty consistent in shooting 50%. Warriors getting a good play off the bench. Again, Hardaway with 12 points, leading the bench attack, but not enough to deal with the fabulous 2. Webber and Howard. Warriors just 18 points in that third quarter after scoring 55 in the first half. They begin the fourth quarter down 9.
After 3 in Oakland on Friday night, they had 102.
Bob McCann with a left hand, rebound to Mullet. George Murison back in. Juwan Howard is left, Howard's still out there. Webber has not yet returned. Gatlin trying to get himself going. Tough shot over Big George. Rebound to McCann. Bullets are playing Price in the backcourt with Legler. Up front, it is Howard, McCann, and Murison. Foul way up top on Chris Mullet. Defending Juwan Howard, Mullet picks up his 3rd foul. Mullet has more fouls than baskets tonight. Just 5 points on 2 of 6 shooting. Warriors playing Hardaway and John Barry. Pretty well resting. Mullet, Gatling, and Rozier. Rozier guards Murison. George has not yet scored. 0 for 5 from the floor. Gatling bumped him, and Gatling threw a helium ball into the crowd. That ball was way over everybody. Gatling is having a very poor game. Probably his worst performance of the season.
That might be the worst pass of the year. I know he'd like to have that one back. I mean, he threw that so hard and high. It went deep in the stands.
Gatling flopping a bit, trying to pick it up on Howard. No call. Warriors have not used Daniel Marshall at all tonight. And no David Wood. McCann had a pretty good look for a shot, and a 24 will sound. McCann again got deep on Gatling and just did not have confidence, Jim, to fire up that lefty for Jim Lynam.
Yeah, Jim Lynam a little irate that he didn't take the shot, because you couldn't ask for a better shot 2 feet from the basket.
Minute and a half into this fourth quarter. Mullen off a pick. Actually a double stack. Rozier and Gatling. Now foul on the Bullets. Chris Webber's going to come back into the game. Fouls on Murison. That's his 5th. And Lynam's going to have to make more changes. Jim McIlvaine will come back in. So Webber and McIlvaine are in. Murison and McCann lead. Warriors have not scored in the first 2 minutes of this quarter. Webber on the steal. Mullen threw it away. All the way, Brent Price. Mullen may have hit that on the rim. They say no. It was off. Legler, 3-point goal. The Bullets reclaim a lead of 12. That bucket by Legler, the first points of the fourth quarter. Rozier. Oh, what a finish over McIlvaine, going to his left hand.
A good move from start to finish.
Warriors down 85-75. Chris Webber 5 points away from tying his career high. Illegal defense on the Warriors. Second time they're called for. This one's on Rozier. He was looking to cheat on McIlvaine and get down to help Gatling, double teaming Webber whenever Webber made that move, which he never did.
If they go back to it, let's see if Chris Gatling can take the challenge of Webber right now. In the first half, I thought Webber took him to the basket much too easily.
Well, there was one time where Gatling just was statuesque as Webber just walked right around him to easily dunk it. Chris normally does not bounce right back quickly after missing some games. He has missed over the last 2 gambling. He looks rusty. Good look by Webber. Webber is just doing it all. Doing it all. 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and 32 big ones. Bullets now have the largest lead of the game. 13 points. Warriors have 9 minutes. Webber lost the rebound. Why can't Webber pull a defensive rebound? It's unbelievable. He has some of the greatest pair of hands on a big guy, Jim. If it's an offensive rebound, he gets every one. But a defensive rebound, we saw him last Friday bobble 2 or 3 away. And here's one tonight.
He doesn't concentrate at the defensive end nearly as much as he does at the offensive end.
He only has 1 defensive rebound tonight. 6 offensive rebounds. That may have been the area of his game that most disappointed Don Nelson. He thought he was going to be a real complete rebounder defender.
Yeah, and Nelson really could not let go of that and just kind of emphasize his strength and minimize the weakness. McElvaine's having a big game.
Timeout. Rick Adelman. The Bullets wanted revenge tonight, and they may get it.
Chris Webber is flirting with a triple-double. 7 rebounds, 8 assists, 32 points.
This may be his biggest night ever in the NBA. He's 5 points away from tying his career high, which he got just a couple of weeks ago. He has picked up a triple-double previously, but if he gets a career high plus a triple-double, this would be McElvaine makes Joe Smith miss it. Rebound to Mitchell Butler, and the Bullets have outscored the Warriors 8-2 to open this 4th quarter, to open up a lead of 15 points.
Percy back in, stitches off of his forehead.
He took 4 stitches. And Malone needs 4 stitches tonight. Webber the jump ball. He's fouled. 34 going on 35.
He does have an uncanny ability to score once he's been denied the initial move. I thought Rozier had good position on him. But he's got a tremendous jump hook. I don't know that Rozier really fouled him on that play.
Webber's missed 2 of his 3 free throws tonight. Warriors give it back. 21 Warrior turnovers tonight, 16 in the first half.
Webber's 3 for 3 from 3-point range. You have to expect he'll put up another.
Oh, Joe Smith with the cup block. He just took that one right out of the hand. Here's a Joe Smith catch. Nice play by Joe not to go up and all in one motion. He felt he was wanted to catch Hardaway's lob and then score it. Smart play.
He saw Legler coming. And a good read by Tim.
Joe Smith has been very good tonight. Price to McElvaine. He had McElvaine left and Webber right. Gave it to the wrong guy. That's the guy you want to get to. He scores again, and he's fouled again. If he makes this free throw, he will tie his career best.
Great baseline pass by Brent Price. Rozier did not think there was enough room to squeeze it through.
Webber has been free throwing better this year, not tonight, though. 3 out of 4, gets his own missed shot. Webber for 3. Warriors are down 20.
Leads the NBA in 3-point field goal percentage. We talked about that. He's having a nice game here tonight.
Bullets gave him a 2-year contract. First time ever in his career that a team locked him up for 2. He's been a vagabond. Phoenix, Denver, Utah, Dallas. Last year with the Warriors for 24 games. He worked hard in the CBA.
Yes, he did, to get where he is today. Up and down. Well, Webber got 36 last year. 37 already December 15th against the Lakers at home. Will he remain on the floor long enough to get a new career high?
I think he's going to want to stay out there for his triple-double. I think he wants 40 and a triple-double. On the wing. It's called on Mitchell Butler. Bullets have not missed Calvert Chaney at all tonight. In fact, they haven't missed Robert Pat. He gets back into the game. And since he's been gone, the Bullets have blown this game sky high. This was a tight game. It was only 78-73. We had 2:23 to go third quarter. Since that point, on a 19-4 run. Offensive foul called on Jerome Kersey. Ball goes back over to the Washington Bullets. This team has not made the playoffs since the 87-88 year. It's going to be tough in the Eastern Conference. There are some good clubs here to be certain that they will be one of the teams battling for a last spot. A new career high for Chris Webber. He has 38 points. And now he will try to get a triple-double. He has not picked up one this year, but he has 4 career triple-doubles. Juwan Howard. Here goes Webber. That's Webber. Over 40 points for Webber. The Bullets are 24. Shaquille had it tipped out. It's off of Shaquille, they say. It looked like it was Webber tipping it out. Referee Mike Smith may be caught up in this wave of Washington Bullet Thunder.
You said Webber wanted revenge. He's had personal revenge and the team. A big bounce-back game less than a week after they were beaten soundly in Oakland.
Although Joe Smith has been very solid tonight. 15 points, 8 rebounds. He's played very well. 7 of 10 on the floor. It has been Webber that has dominated, and he may not be done. Robert Pack, will he get an assist for that? Yes, he will, probably. If it's an assist for Webber, that will leave him 1 assist and 2 rebounds away, and they do give him an assist for his 5th career triple-double.
He was thinking assist all the way. He's just very happy that Robert Pack was not fouled harder on the play.
B.J. Armstrong, Jim, back in. Daniel Marshall in the game for the first time tonight. Daniel Marshall is all the Warriors have left from the Chris Webber trade. And here he is getting into the game just for mop-up time on the night that Webber goes for 40 and maybe a triple-double. Now, you don't see guys pick up triple-doubles and go for 40. I mean, normally when players go for 40, they just score a lot.
It's all offense, yes.
You don't see 40 and 10 and 10. Those are monstrous numbers. There goes Joe. He wants to pass it now. He may get a quadruple-double when you factor in turnovers. Boy, McIlvain can reject, can he?
Gets his 3rd of the night. Fighting off Ronnie Cycli.
Whoa!
Now, I thought Ronnie Cycli might hold him a little bit and give Joe Smith a path to the basket. It did not happen.
What an avalanche here. The Bullets have outscored. Look at those numbers. 26-4 in the last 9 minutes. 26-4.
Howard, another travel violation. David Wood on the floor. And it did not go by me. 26-4 run, Greg.
Yeah, the Bullets are sloppy, there's no doubt. I think Mark Price could really solidify this team. You put Mark Price and his brilliant floor play along with these leapers, Howard and Webber and Mirasan. This could be something.
And I think Jim Lynam just hopes that they will respect him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know what I mean?
Will they just run right by him?
Will they honor his...
He's got his 10th rebound now. Webber needs 1 more assist. Well, Trell Sprewell's just having a miserable late game. He's missed his last 11 shots.
Webber almost had an assist had Howard knocked it down.
David Wood into the game late like Daniel Marshall. Warriors just not playing well tonight here late. Daniel travels. Chris Cantling going to come in. 4 minutes and 31 seconds to play in the game. We thought we'd have some late game fun tonight. These Bullets are not a very good team finishing. But there's not going to be a finish to worry about. He wants to play point forward here to get his triple-double. Robert Pack will shoot it. If he makes it, Webber has a triple-double. He didn't make it.
That's the only drama left, it appears to be.
Well, how much drama do we have? He has 4 minutes and 10 seconds to pick up an assist.
That's only the 6th point in 8 minutes of play for the Warriors in this period.
Modern day players are numbers crazy. Whoever wants one more assist. Cycling to Wood. Great looking fast break.
Especially when you had a guy on the left that could have gotten the layup.
Now, it happens in tennis when a better player plays, another guy plays down to his opponent's play. It's like the Warriors here getting caught up in this bullet 4-on-1 breakout stuff with the big guys leading the play. It's Cycling to David Wood on the breakout. Cycling pulled out.
Clearly, David Wood was not expecting the pass. He was trailing the play.
Now David Wood's going to guard Webber. Robert Pack into McGrady. Foul. 3 minutes and 38 seconds to go. Leonard will come back in. How long will Lynham go with Webber out there? Both Webber and Howard stay on the floor. Mitchell Butler pulled out.
This guy at the line, though, McElvain, the number 32 pick in '94, second round. I think they've got to find here.
He's not a bad backup center.
He is not a bad backup center at all. In fact, he's much more mobile than Bryant Reeves. Big country. Maybe not the shooter that Bryant Reeves is, but certainly a better shot blocker, quicker, and with more mobility.
That's the one area of this game that Bryant Reeves has to improve. He's not the most mobile guy in the league. Robert Pack. Blocked by Gatling. Gatling goes down hard. Armstrong all the way to the bucket. He did not get the roll, but he does get the foul. It's on Jim McElvain. McElvain wearing one of those breathe rights like the NFL players do.
Pack just forces this one in. Took it to trouble. Gatling very fortunate he did not get hurt on that play. He was stretched out there in an awkward position.
Armstrong makes the free throw.
You know the Warriors are going to relish the day off in Atlanta to regroup and try to salvage this road trip. We talked at the top of this road trip, Greg, that these are all winnable games. I thought last night's game might be the toughest because I think Detroit's the toughest team. I forgot about the emotion factor and payback time for Chris Webber and the Bullets.
And don't think Atlanta's going to be easy on Friday. And New Jersey's a much better home team than they are road team. This is a tough trip. And let's face it, the Warriors are not beating up the NBA, especially on the road.
3-10. Certainly not.
And it's going to be 3-11 in 2 minutes and 50 seconds. Webber misses a three. And Webber fouls B.J. Armstrong way out on the floor. Timeout called by the Warriors, and Rick Adelman is filling in the box score here. See if Webber can get one more assist in his 5th career triple-double. The Bullets are bombing the Warriors. Well, with this Warrior loss tonight in Landover, Maryland, they will fall into last place in the Pacific Division. The Clippers beat Charlotte. The Clippers now 11-17. The Warriors will fall to 10-17 as we look at our forward scores around the league, Jim.
Minnesota leading in the 4th period by 1 over Milwaukee.
Phoenix an 8-point lead. Phoenix Suns 2 games under 500. A couple of games later on. Boston against Portland and Denver and Seattle. The Supersonics 11-1 at their rebuilt Key Arena this year. Armstrong makes a 3-point goal. Warriors who beat these Bullets 132-117 last Friday in Oakland in their best offensive show of the year, have humbled tonight, shooting 46%, 25 turnovers. That's an assist for Webber on the Legler 3. So Chris Webber has filled it in.
It was all set up for him. He wanted the ball back, and Legler drained it from way out.
And now he's going to leave. Bob McCann will come in. For Chris Webber, his 5th career triple-double in a career-high scoring game. What a monster. 40, 10, and 10. I'm not sure I've ever heard those numbers.
Well, that's because you never saw Oscar Robertson play when he averaged a triple-double.
Oscar would go for 40, 18, and 14. You ever go for 40, 10, and 10, though? That's pretty good. No.
Those are good numbers.
Not just a triple-double, but 40 points in a triple-double. He got his payback. Warriors big on messages and paybacks. He got one.
Just to quickly insert that, in 61-62, the Big O averaged over 30 points a game, averaged over 12 rebounds a game, and over 11 assists a game. So you know he had a lot of 40-point games to go along with double-digit rebounds and assists.
Oh, of course it's been done. Many times, but you just don't see guys lighting up a team for 40 and a triple-double.
Particularly from a guy 6'9", 6'10".
And Michael Jordan will do it every now and then.
No, point is well taken.
That's a big now. Oh! Gets himself on the line. Liddell Eccles will check back in for the Washington Bullets. Eccles, a Bullet for 4 years to begin his career. Did not play for a couple of years, and last year played in Miami. Juwan Howard will be the co-star tonight. 24 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Warriors did slightly out-rebound this team, at least they have so far. With 1:44 to go, they're up 42-41. But in every other category, the Bullets were the better team.
Well, give the Bullets credit, because every time the Warriors made a little charge and got the numbers down to workable the deficit, the Warriors never had a lead tonight. The Bullets made the plays they had to stave the Warrior rally off.
Bob McCann dribbles out of bounds, and the ball will go back over to the Golden State Warriors here with 1:31 to play.
Yeah, Bob was in training camp last year, made the trip to Europe, Paris and Barcelona. Glad to see him back in the league.
Daniel Marshall gets the bucket. Jim McElvain, he likes to block everything. Jim Carrey, not the actor, but the goaltender, the Washington Capitals. I'm not sure he stops as many as McElvain does on the net. McElvain tries to block everything. Got 3 blocks tonight. He's gone for everyone. Oh, McCann. It's the jam. That goes up and in. What a Bullet show. And this will be the last time the Golden State Warriors, Jim, ever play the Washington Bullets. You know that? They're going to change their name next year. Their owner, Abe Poland, a very close friend of Yitzhak Rabin, the slain Prime Minister of Israel. And right after the assassination, he said, that's it.
Yes, there's been a lot of discussion about that. In fact, there's been some criticism. If he's going to change it next year, why not implement that and change it right now?
I wonder if the league will allow it.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
The NBA governing office will not allow that change. And it's clear why they want to change it from Bullets with all the violence in America, and
especially in Washington, D.C.
Particularly in Washington, D.C., in that metropolis.
It'll be their 6th different name. They began as the Chicago Packers back in the early 60s. Just for 1 year, they became the Deckers. Then they moved to this area. They became the Baltimore Bullets.
Then the Capital Bullets for 1 year.
The Washington Bullets no longer after this year. McElvain picks up the foul.
To illustrate how far we've come, and sometimes not always in a positive direction, when I first started playing in Baltimore back in the mid-late 60s, when Don Ole or Kevin Lockery would shoot a basket from long range, they would have ricochet bullets, sound effect, go off in the arena.
And Kevin Lockery would shoot it up. He liked to shoot.
Yes, he did. So did Don Ole. They were 2 backcourt people who could, well, they'd not been scoring, but you would never have that kind of sound effect today. And rightfully so.
Well, maybe you would, but it wouldn't be planned by the game operations people. 27 seconds to play. 113-93. Warriors are humbled here late. They were in this game, and then under an avalanche of Chris Webber points, the Bullets just devoured the Warriors late. Tim Lakeler, what a shooting game he has had. 4 of 5 on 3-point shooting. They got to get him to Phoenix, or pardon me, to San Antonio this year in the All-Star game, the All-Star long-distance shootout. He would be the favorite.
What's his total tonight, Tim Legler?
With those 2 free throws, Tim Legler has 20 points.
Which is a new season high and 5 off his career high.
They are bidding the Warriors adieu here in Washington, much like they do at Comiskey Park. Bob McCann picks up the foul. Warriors with this loss will fall to 10-17, 3-11 on the road, and 0-2 on this 4-game trip. After the game, the Warriors will jump on their charter, hour and 20-minute flight to the capital of the South, Atlanta, GA. Well, they'll play Friday. We'll have that game for you on Channel 36 and a tape delay. A live broadcast Saturday in New Jersey to wind up the road trip, and then back home for Gary Stackhouse and the 76ers on Wednesday, and the T-Wolves on Friday. Warriors are playing some of the weak teams of the league, but until they prove they can beat anybody on the road, the Warriors still appear to be a lottery team. McIlvaine just knocked down. I mean, knocked to the deck. Gatling as the game ended. What's that all about?
Gatling came up to head off Brent Price, and McIlvaine says, hey,